Hello, I'm Jude,
And I'm John.
and we're going to be sharing a few words about the formation article called Don't Throw Bread from the Truck.
Who would do that?
Actually, I saw it recently done in Los Angeles. It wasn't bread, it was space blankets, but people drove through Skid
Space
Row.
blankets from the truck. Hey!
A youth group from Orange County, really blonde young kids, drove through Skid Row throwing space blankets off the back of a truck. And I realized, in fact, people are still throwing bread from trucks.
So, it seems like this article is important, and I'm wondering why this article is important.
I think the article looks at some really key themes that are really important to us in interchange. It looks at issues related to poverty, privilege, and power.
Also agency, and I think something about, aren't we about what Jesus does?
Yep.
I mean, like the way Jesus does ministry?
Yep. We hope so.
Yeah. So, when this article looks at poverty, what are some of the things it discloses that you think are important for us to reflect on?
What I really like about this article is that in anthropology, we talk about two different perspectives. One is called the emic, and one is the etic perspective. So the emic is the insider perspective. And that's the perspective that's hard to get when we're come from the outside. So what this article does, it's not an article about poverty or about the poor from someone who wasn't poor. It's actually a narrative, a story of someone who grew up poor and talks about what that's like. And so I think for those of us who grew up non-poor, it's a very helpful perspective to get that insider understanding of what it's like to grow up poor.
So we get to listen to the story.
Exactly. And we like to do that in interchange.
Yeah, that's important. And then in terms of privilege, what does it expose?
One of the key things to understand about, I think, poverty is what it's like to be poor and what it's like to not to be poor. And so one of the themes of the article is what is it like to be the person who has to give up her dignity to receive the bread, but it's also the privilege of the person who gets to throw the bread, and then the feelings that she has for the people with power and privilege who have the privilege of giving and throwing the bread versus having to be the one to receive it.
Wow. So there's this connection between privilege and power then.
Yes, absolutely. And there are things we often don't think about. If we've grown up with power and privilege, those are often assumptions about life that we've never really thought about. And they come through in this article, and that's one of the reasons we chose it originally.
And I think there's a word that I've often heard you use. It's agency. And somehow this relates to the growth or the diminishing of power. How does agency make a difference?
Well, I always go back to the work of Paulo Freire. He was a Brazilian educator, and he got us thinking about what it means for people to be either objects or subjects of their fate or of their destiny. And so very often the poor are seen as objects. And what happens in this article is the poor are objectified. The bread is just thrown at them. And nobody wants to be just an object of someone's kindness or pity. No one wants to be an object of someone's anything. We all want to be subjects. We want to have agency. We want to be able to act on our own lives. And I see in the scriptures that's how Jesus always treated people.
So Jesus didn't use the Crusades to bring people to God.
No. Or throw bread.
Or throw bread.
He shared bread with Zacchaeus. He broke bread with people, and in that communion shared bread with people.
Oh, so so there's a difference between doing things to or for or at versus with.
Exactly.
Or among.
Among and with, yeah.
And so what does this uncover about the way Jesus did ministry, and how does that inform us about maybe how we should do ministry?
Yeah. Well, it seems to me that Jesus never objectified people. There's so many examples of this. One is the woman, the bleeding woman, that touches the fringe of Jesus' robe. She is just another woman in the crowd, and he calls her forth. he wants to have this encounter with her, and he calls her my daughter. And so he doesn't let her be just this object, this person out there, but always draws her into relationship. And the article is also very good about showing that the importance of that, of being in relationship with each other.
Yeah.
A wonderful story about what happens to her when she goes to the Sunday school.
Yeah. But really, one thing that touches me is this awakening of value through love.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe a question that I find myself asking in response to this article is what we're doing awakening people's sense of value, their sense of personal worth through love? Is love being actually not just given, but is love being received? And actually, we can't tell them that, we can't tell whoever we're working with, oh, I've given you love, so you must have received it. But rather, how do we know if the person's actually catching love? Is there something in this article that shows that love is actually connecting with her?
Well, she talks about going into the difference between feeling like a real person or not a real person. So I think that's an interesting thing to realize, how poverty caused her to feel not real, or not like real people who were other to her, and the real key moment for her, comes when she walks into the Sunday school.
Well, really, we want to thank you. This is John. You can find me on YouTube. I'm Jaw1LA.
Promoting as usual.
As always.
You won't find me on YouTube. This is my first try.
Hey, but you know what? She belongs here. She has lots of wisdom. It's my bias that she's got wisdom and knowledge and all sorts of stuff that we need. But anyway, this is Jay and Jay.
Jay in LA.
And God bless.
Hot September night in LA.
Hey.